Yeah, let me see if I can turn that on.
Okay.
Okay,
And I'll put
I think I
in
got it.
the chat that we're recording so the kids will make sure that they have their cameras off because they have to have their cameras off when we're recording.
Great, good to know. Thank you. I think we should be all set for recording. So I haven't actually recorded a presentation before, so it'll be an adventure. We'll see how that goes.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. Well, thank you all for joining us. I see there's a bunch of students who've joined us today. My name is Joe Johnson. I'm an Assistant Dean of Admission here at Lewis and Clark College in Portland. And I work primarily with students coming to us from Washington and Idaho. And I'm actually from Spokane myself. So it's great to get to work with y'all. And I'm excited to chat with you a little bit more about Lewis and Clark. Now, I thought we could get started by just having a little bit of a quick few slides that I'd put up with some general information about Lewis and Clark. And then from there, we can dive into questions that you guys might have. Again, feel free to put those questions in the chat as we go. And we are recording, but I'm going to be answering those questions as we go, and then kind of at the end of each section, and then at the end as well. So let me go ahead and share my screen here for a moment. While I'm getting that started, I'd love to hear in the chat what things you guys are interested in, either academics or clubs and activities. I'd love to know a little bit more about what you're looking for from Lewis and Clark. Right, so it should be all set. Since we can't all join together here in Portland, I'm working remotely, as many of us are, attending classes remotely and all of that. I thought, let's pretend that we're in Portland. So here's a nice aerial shot of campus. This gives you a little bit of our south side of campus. You can see our athletic facilities. You can see some of our academic buildings. You can see we're right next to the river. And we're also kind of in the middle of the woods. We are a 5-minute walk from a state park, Tryon Creek State Park, just down the road across the street from us. And yet we're just 5 miles from the center of downtown Portland. So already that gives you a sense of our location. The fact that if you're looking for a small college, you want that tight-knit community, you want small classes, you want access to professors who teach every single class here at Lewis and Clark, but you don't want to have to sacrifice big city resources, the food scene, the jobs, the internships, the arts and culture and music and sports events and kind of scene of a place like Portland. You really get the best of both worlds at a place like Lewis and Clark. You can do everything at a place like Lewis and Clark. Most small colleges, if you're looking at smaller liberal arts schools or smaller private schools generally, they tend to be in more rural areas, the Whitmans of the world, or even in more of a kind of suburban, outside of a large major city or maybe a small college town environment. And we're really lucky to have a mix of the city and still have that small college feel. So already off the bat, that's one of the big reasons that a lot of students are interested in us and end up coming to a place like Lewis and Clark. Thought we could get started with some more photos of campus too. If you were doing a regular admissions visit, this is where you'd start, the admissions building here on campus. Oh, and by the way, we are recording this, so please make sure that your video is off. Make sure that we're in alignment with our school policies. But so excited to have you here. Thanks for joining. You'll also notice that this is one of my favorite photos because the guy in the center of this photo, he's actually walking around barefoot. And I have to say, the culture here at Lewis and Clark, the kinds of students that are drawn here, they're definitely, pretty down to earth. They're socially conscious. They're environmentally friendly. I would say like on the preppy to crunchy scale, we're like a little bit more on the crunchy side compared to like the social hierarchy that a lot of other small colleges often has in their community. But it's not uncommon to see students biking around or skateboarding around or maybe even walking around barefoot like this one guy. That's not too uncommon at a place like LC. Just to give you a sense of, the kind of campus vibe that we have. So I love this photo. Here's another photo of campus and another space in our academic area. It's not uncommon to have outside classes, even during a non-pandemic period. Obviously, this photo was taken pre-pandemic. We do have some outdoor classes right now at Lewis and Clark. that are social distance, that are masked, that are in covered, tented outdoor spaces, because we are offering classes in person this fall for students that wanted that experience. We actually gave all students the option of either taking fully remote instruction from home or living in our residence halls or in the Portland community for upperclassmen and taking mixed access hybrid courses. So the courses that have more in-person components are courses in the STEM areas, courses in language, courses in the arts, and some of our fitness classes. But the rest of our classes are mostly online. And about 80% of our students decided that they wanted to be on campus this semester for a hybrid model of instruction. So we found students, we offered this option because they really wanted to be here. And we know that there's still some students that were unable or were not fully comfortable traveling during the pandemic. And so we wanted to make sure that their education was fully accessible as well. And, I've been meeting with students. Sometimes I have students who join these visits too, who share more about their experiences. I've had a student from Bellingham who's been taking her classes from Bellingham all semester and is enjoying it, definitely misses the campus experience and is looking to return to campus for spring semester. But then there's also students that are on campus, and with our pod system, with residence hall pods, they're still able to find their friend groups and create new friend groups on campus so that you're able to have that college experience in a, next to normal, pandemic era. And kudos to you guys for going through the college search right now, because, just like our first year students, this is not what they expected for their first year of college. This is not what you guys expected for your senior year of high school either, or junior year, depending on, where you are right now in the college search. So kudos for you guys as well for, working through and navigating this process in a difficult time. We also have athletics here at Lewis and Clark. We are a Division III varsity athletics school. So we're really committed to that idea of a student athlete, that full-fledged academic experience where you're going to have the supportive team environment and still get to compete at that high level, but that you're getting a great education at the same time. So our professors understand, if you're an athlete, there are going to be some days that you have to miss for tournaments, for travel, for early morning practices that are going to affect your ability to, time manage in a different way. Not only do you have academic support from our coaching staff and from our athletics department, you also, as long as you're being proactive with your professors, have their understanding as well. So we have, some major sports, pretty much everything that you'd expect, from women's soccer to track and field and cross country to swim to basketball to baseball and softball to volleyball, football, pretty much all of the major sports. There's 19 varsity sports that we offer. And even if you're not ready to be, that varsity level athlete, we still have some fantastic club and intramural opportunities here at LC. A couple of our most popular ones are our ultimate Frisbee teams. The men's team, men's identifying, is Bacchus, and the women's identifying team is Artemis. And our Artemis ultimate Frisbee team actually went to nationals a year and a half ago down in Texas. So they are quite good. I will say you don't have to have, prior experience to get on the team. It's definitely open to all skill levels, but they're definitely a pretty competitive and well-known team here in the region. So those are a couple of our club sports. We have club sailing, we have women's rugby, we have all genders inclusive, but women's rules lacrosse. We've got men's club soccer as well. And all these club teams will have coaches that they hire. They use student government funds to, travel and attend tournaments. So it really still is intercollegiate rather than intramural. But, it's not going to be that same time commitment of being a full-fledged varsity athlete. So definitely something to think about if you want to stay active and engaged. About 20% of our students are varsity athletes, and another 30% or so are doing club and or intramural sports here at Lewis and Clark. Another really popular pastime is hammocking here on campus. Because of our serene natural landscape, we're basically in the middle of the woods. We have this garden space with these like little pagodas that are spaced around the gardens. It's like a tiered multi-level garden kind of space that then at the very end, it frames Mount Hood with a flagpole underneath it. So it's this just gorgeous, gorgeous scenery. And students will hang out, they'll read, they'll paint, they'll be on their computers, they'll just hang out outside. Even in, less sunny weather, here in Portland, we do get, some clouds, we do get some rain, something you have to be prepared for, especially in the wintertime. But we don't get the snow that, Eastern Washington gets. So don't quite have to worry about that. A 1/4 inch of snow, often classes are canceled. It's kind of funny. As someone, who grew up with snowpocalypse all the time, their idea of snowpocalypse is a few inches. But yeah, this idea of, hanging out outside, hammocking, enjoying the outdoors, that's a big piece of the culture here at Lewis and Clark. I would say you don't have to be outdoorsy to go to LC, but 90% of our students go on at least one of our college outdoors trips during the academic year. These are trips, we offer over 100 of them every year. There's a trip every single weekend. There are fall break and spring break trips. There are pre-orientation trips that happen in mid-August as well, that about half of our new first-year students and transfer students will go on before they even show up for their first day. So it's definitely a great way to meet new people, find folks that share your passions for the outdoors. Even if you're not super intense into like backpacking and backcountry camping, we've got mushroom picking trips and, Oregon coast walk trips. So there's all sorts of stuff open for everyone. Again, all skill levels. And we have a giant gear warehouse called Sequoia, where you can check out all of our gear. We have scholarships available for Black, Indigenous people of color here in the student community. And then we also offer half off of all of our college outdoors trips if you receive any form of financial assistance. So that accessibility piece is something that we're definitely keeping in mind when we think about the outdoors. Now, kind of a brief overview about our kind of academic snapshot of Lewis and Clark. We are a small by design college. We're a very traditional liberal arts school. So that means that professors teach everything here at Lewis and Clark. There are no TAs teaching any of our classes. It's very much an honors college style setup where you show up to class, you have done the readings, you're prepared, and you talk with the professor and your peers in the classroom every single day. So, you can't hide in an education like this. And that's why students are choosing this academic environment. They want to be in a space where they can challenge each other, where they can challenge the professor, they can bring in perspectives from the other classes and their experiences in the community, because that's what we're all about. Now, just to talk for a moment about this idea of the liberal arts too. I was in high school and I had no idea what the liberal arts was. I had heard about liberal arts colleges and I thought that just meant they were, small colleges. So I'm curious, put in the chat right now, when you hear the phrase liberal arts, what do you think of? What words, what phrases, what thoughts come to mind? What do you think of when you hear that? Some common words that I hear are things like interdisciplinary, or maybe well-rounded, or thinking, reading, writing, kind of a combination of those really core skills. And for us, that idea of the liberal arts is very much revolving around those core skills, those core competencies. It's not just about getting an education and majoring in something and then being done with your life. It's about getting the breadth and the depth within departments that you're interested in. It's someone like me who is a theater and psychology double major in college after changing my major 6 times, because you have that freedom and flexibility to make up your mind as you go. But for me, that idea was, okay, I'm really passionate about storytelling. I'm really passionate about building art in a community. Having that communal artistic experience. And at the same time, I can't separate that from understanding human behavior and understanding language and understanding communication. Because for me, the two went hand in hand. How I embody a character on stage, how I tell a story on stage is inherently about communication and helping people understand a different perspective, a different idea, a story. So for me, that overlap is where I really engage with the liberal arts. And our students are doing that in other areas. Students that have interest in the arts and biology, students that are interested in environmental studies and philosophy, where they want to look at the intersections of how our environmental policy came to be and why our country and why our society is in the situation that we're in right now, where we're denying whether climate change is even real or not. There are folks here on campus who are passionate about combining their interests between sociology, anthropology, and computer science, or psych and neuroscience. Students that are, applying machine learning techniques to human perception. Students that are working in our biochem department with health sciences interests, who are building self-healing stents with our professors for medical procedures. These students, they understand that, the future of all of these industries and all these jobs that you may be interested in, those futures, are flexible and adaptable. And in order to be a really strong candidate for those internships, those jobs, those careers, those graduate programs of study, you can't just have a one single track train of thought or expertise. If you're great at chemistry and you're really good at the science, you're great at doing science, awesome, good for you. There's going to be a lot of jobs, though, where you need to communicate that science. You need to write about that science. You need to explain that science to other people who don't have that background. So for us, that liberal arts experience is not just about studying one thing and then getting ready to do that for the rest of your life. A liberal arts education prepares you for this rapidly changing society that we're all going to be a part of. I mean, young folks in the room, hope I can include myself in that. On average, we're not just going to have 3 to 4 different jobs during the rest of our lives. That's a given. On average, we're actually going to have 3 to 4 different career fields entirely that we'll work in. Let that sink in for a sec. The idea that you may major in something and you may work in 2 or 3 other, on average, totally different fields. You may start in sciences and move to, computer science and data industry, and then move to arts administration. You may start with museum studies and then move into art acquisition. And then you may move into gallery spaces. Or you may start in psychology and move to anthropology, or then move to local government advocating for prison rights. You start thinking about all these different ways that the jobs and opportunities in the world around us, they don't just section themselves off into chemistry, psychology, anthropology, gender studies, studio art. Everything gets all kind of mixed up. And that, again, is the goal of the liberal arts, to get you thinking about the connections between those disciplines. The critical thinking, reading, writing skills, analysis, synthesis, public speaking skills, they're going to make you flexible and versatile and adaptable to change. So that's our goal here. And we do that in our thirds model approach to our academics, where 1/3 of your time is spent taking general education categories. Areas like the arts, fitness, culture, power, and identity, bibliographic research and writing, STEM and lab science classes. So there's a wide variety of courses that we ask you to fulfill a category from. Then 1/3 of your time here is your major at Lewis and Clark. You don't have to declare your major till the end of your sophomore year. And if you need to change your mind, that's okay too. You have some flexibility. You actually have 2 advisors, one who's a faculty advisor and one who is a staff advisor at the college to help you navigate that process. And as you can see, we offer 29 majors and 31 minors. So there's a lot of flexibility in the areas that you're interested in. And we also offer a student design major for students that want to repurpose courses and curriculum from departments that currently exist into a new program of study just for them. For example, a really successful version of this a couple of years ago was a student who graduated with a self-designed peace studies major. So they combined some gender studies and cultural area study programs with anthropology and political science and psychology, wrapped it all up into a peace studies program, and then is now doing international ambassador work. So just an example of what that could look like for students. It's very common to double major or to major and minor. The students that are coming to Lewis and Clark are typically very multi-interested, and about 40% will either double major or major and minor. So you definitely have that flexibility because the last third of your time are electives. So if you want to major and double major, that's just using your electives for this other additional area of interest. Maybe you want to study abroad once related to your major and a second time for fun with your electives. That's an option too. So there's a lot of flexibility in our education because of this thirds model approach. Now, I talked a little bit about some research opportunities, but one of my favorite ways that students are actually applying their education outside of the classroom are through what we call our research symposia each year. Now, these are basically student-led conferences, if you will. They're centered in areas like race and ethnic studies, gender studies, environmental studies, international affairs, political science, global identities and third culture kids, and Middle Eastern and North African studies. So those are 6 of our big areas where we offer student steering committee, inviting guest speakers to campus, planning workshops and campus forum discussions with keynote speakers, volunteering opportunities with the Portland community, research presentations from our students and professors, and students and profs from other schools around the Northwest. It is a fantastic way to dive deeply into a particular area of interest from the experience and the expertise you're getting in the classroom, applying to the real world and some of the problems that we're seeing. So that's one of our ways that our students are, starting to think bigger, think globally about their education. Now, the last thing, last bullet point here is something called our 4-5-6 commitment. This is something that we created a couple years ago for students and parents who, were nervous about whether you'd actually be able to finish a degree in college in 4 years. There's a lot of worry, at larger schools, like, can I actually get the classes I need and get into the program that I want so I can still graduate in 4 years? And that's not something you have to worry about here at LC. As long as you're declaring your major on time by the end of sophomore year and you're meeting with your advisor each year, each semester, if for some reason you can't graduate in 4 years, in 8 semesters, we will pay for your 9th semester of tuition. That's on us. So when you're thinking about, that kind of commitment, that's the commitment that we make to our families. We also have pathway programs. So if you're interested in education or interested in going into the legal studies field, we have some master's programs and a JD program offered through our graduate school and our law school here at LC. So some great opportunities there. And finally, before I jump into questions, I want to give you a little bit of a snapshot about our community. One of the interesting things about Lewis and Clark is that, unlike many other colleges, the vast, vast majority of our students come from out of state. And that's on purpose. A lot of schools have huge draws within their own state, but for us, because we have a global community, because we're committed to that global perspective in the classroom, in the community, and with our study abroad programs, there are students coming to us from all over the world. You can see here 47 different US states. That's normal, US states and territories. We have 60 different nationalities represented in our campus community. And then we also have a whole subset of our students that we call third culture kids. These are students who, maybe have dual citizenship or have grown up in 2 different countries, maybe traveling with their parents who were in the military or were diplomats. I worked with a student from Seattle a couple years ago who, last 8 years of his life, he's grown up on a boat circumnavigating the globe 1.5 times with his parents and his 2 younger sisters. Yeah. So he's had a very different education, a very different upbringing, very different perspectives that he's bringing to our community than international students and from domestic students. So that global community is inherently who we are. That's one of the things we're most well known for here at Lewis and Clark is who we are as a college. So this gives you a nice snapshot of kind of demographics on campus. When we think more about geographic diversity as well, it's 90% of our students that come from outside of Oregon, 90%. A big chunk are from the West Coast, Washington, Oregon, California, but a big chunk are from the South, from the East Coast, and again, internationally as well, and the Midwest. So we really are coming from all walks of life here at Lewis and Clark. So that's some kind of brief overview information about campus. Thanks all for sharing a little bit more about the things you're interested in. And I'd love for you to jump in the chat with questions that you have about our campus. Let's see if I can make my chat a little bit bigger here. Great. So yeah, average tuition. Yeah, let's talk financial aid. Let's talk applying. So because we're a small college and we're a private college, the list price, the sticker price looks enormous. You know, we're about $70,000 a year, but 96% of our students don't actually pay that. Again, it's kind of like, you know, you go to the store and when you buy something that's not on sale, that's the price. But here at Lewis and Clark, 96% of our students are receiving a combination of merit-based scholarships and or need-based financial aid. So the average price is considerably lower than that sticker price. You know, an average price isn't really fair to give out because, you know, some families, that's going to be very different if you have a very low need. But I will say that our average financial aid award that we offer to students, you know, is upwards of $35,000 a year. So automatically, you know, it's, you know, depending on your financial need, it could be a really substantial, you know, set of coupons that we give you, if you will, to make this education accessible and affordable. In terms of financial aid, all we require is the FAFSA to be eligible for financial aid. That could include grants from Lewis and Clark. It could include work study from Lewis and Clark or from the government. Could include federal subsidized or unsubsidized loans. It could include any of those big pieces of the financial aid puzzle. In terms of scholarships, when you apply to Lewis and Clark, you are automatically considered for all merit scholarships that we offer. Last year, those academic-based scholarships ranged between about $15,000 a year for all 4 years, up to about $28,000 a year for all 4 years. And again, that's before any need-based aid that you may also be eligible for. So if you're receiving one of our top scholarships and you have, you know, perhaps you come from a lower income family and you have a little bit more need for support from a college, we're able to provide that and make sure that we can be an affordable option for you. And again, we work, and our financial aid office works to partner with your family in that financing, because this is not just something you pay for, this is actually an investment that your family is making. And if you look at the outcomes for liberal arts colleges, the fact that we have higher graduation rates, higher satisfaction, and we have, because of our tight-knit community, a fantastic alumni network, that you're actually getting oftentimes a better investment than many other schools you could be looking at. So definitely look into that. Don't be scared off from us or from other small private schools based on that sticker price. I mean, think about the Whitworths of the world, you think about the Gonzagas of the world, they look expensive when you look up front, but you're not actually gonna know what you pay, what your family will pay, until you go through the process and you have that financial aid offer in your hand. That's how you'll know. Thanks everyone for joining us. I know some of you may have to get to class right now. I'm gonna stick around for a couple minutes so that if you have some more questions though, that I can answer those. We do require students to live on campus for 2 years, for 4 semesters. So we guarantee housing all 4 years if you want housing on campus, but we offer suite and apartment style housing for upperclassmen, and about half of our upperclassmen will choose to stay and half will choose to live in the Portland area. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you guys so much. I'm going to send along a link that if you could fill out a quick form to let me know that you attended today. And Nicole, I will also check in with you. That would be great to let me know that you're interested in Lewis and Clark and that you showed up. But again, thanks all for joining us. Hope you have a great rest of your day. Stay safe and healthy.